Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Hammer Territory podcast. This is episode 196. I'm your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Sunday evening, and I'm joined, as I always am, by Scott Coleman. Scott, the vibes, not the best on this Sunday night. How are you?
Hello, Brad. I am doing okay, and I would be remiss not to start this podcast with a very happy Mother's Day to all of the moms out there. I know for a 100% certainty that we have moms who tune into this show. You all are the real heroes and MVPs. So yes, happy Mother's Day. We were really hoping the vibes would be a little more positive on this Sunday night edition of the show, but we have a great guest lined up. And as always, we talk about the good and the bad.
Yes, that is our job, to cover the team in some depth, and we try to do that. Obviously, more we all four of us want the Braves to win. It's not a completely independent journalistic endeavor, but we do want to give you the whole picture. That's what we try to do on this podcast, and we'll be doing that today. And as Scott just teased, as you'll probably see if you click on the podcast, we'll be joined in a minute by Grant McAuley of 92.9 and Meridian Daily Journal, all kinds of places, Battery Power, Grant's all over the place, Braves Insider. And we want to knock out some nuts and bolts stuff before bringing Grant in, because I don't want to make Grant be subjected to talk about the recap of this weekend series, to be honest with you. So we'll go a little bit more big picture when Grant joins us. But in the meantime, everyone listening to this probably knows this by now, but the Braves just lost 2 out of 3 to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Not what anybody thought was going to happen this weekend, even if you are a doomer. And somebody asked me this, I looked it up today. The Braves have not won a series in Pittsburgh in the last 3 years. They lost this year, they lost last year, and they split 4 games, even in 2023 when they won 104 games. So Pittsburgh's been a little bit of a house of horrors, small scale, but still. And look, we'll get into this a lot more with Grant. But look, the offense has just not been good enough for a while now, and that was the case this weekend. Over the last 11 games, they've scored 31 runs. Do the math on that one, Scott. That is less than 3 runs per game. And while you can still win sometimes, the Braves are actually still miraculously, if all you knew was that, being 5-6 is actually pretty good, but you have to score runs. And we'll talk about the pitching at some point during this podcast, but like, it's hard to even talk about pitching with a straight face right now. It's basically just the offense is not doing what it's supposed to do.
Hey, and we should at least be semi-positive where we need to be. The pitching staff is pitching its ass off right now. They are keeping the Braves in basically every single game. And you mentioned they're 5-6 over their last 11. If you're averaging less than 3 runs a game, what's your implied win probability that night? Like 25%, 30%?
Yeah.
And the Braves, despite everything that's gone wrong, have done a good enough job because of the pitching of keeping their heads above water. But this is not sustainable. This team has to figure out a way to score some effing runs. It's brutal to watch. It's just as painful as 2024 all over again. I don't know what the solution is. Maybe Grant will have some great idea or insight. He's around the team really close. But, every day I think I have people tweeting me saying, Scott, what is wrong with this team on offense? And I don't know. I don't know if anybody knows. And I mean, it's infuriating to watch. Sunday's game was kind of a perfect encapsulation of all of the offensive woes. And they ended up losing a series against a Pirates team that coming into it was so bad they fired their manager and are probably going to just clean house in a couple of months at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Just pretty bleak on this Mother's Day weekend. And I don't know. I mean, I guess you can kind of hold out a little bit of hope that it's still like kind of early. We are at the 25% mark of the season. A lot of baseball to go, about 122 games. Sure, the Braves can figure things out, and every team in baseball, for the most part, has questions of some kind. But the questions for the Braves are getting louder and louder and louder, seemingly every single time they take the field.
Yeah, and not to be this guy, I'm not actually this person. People that listen to the podcast regularly, and you should be subscribing to this podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts. But if you don't already do that, you should join us. If you do, you will note that I'm pretty even keel. I will push back on people getting mad or people getting too excited, all those things. I did think when the Pirates fired their manager that was a bad sign for the Braves this weekend. Because the dead cat counts, and it's actually proven to be the case. Like, teams usually play a little bit better when they fire their manager. That's across sports. So that was a little bit scary, and then what happened. Look, we can hit the highlights quickly here, or the lowlights, so to speak. Friday, they didn't score for 8 innings. That's basically the story of the game on Friday. You lose the game 3-2, despite Bryce Elder pitching pretty well. Again, you just didn't score any runs. They did kind of threaten at the very end of the game, and that was that. The biggest story, other than the loss on Friday, was them DFAing Eddie Rosario. Farewell, old friend. That needed to happen. I don't know about you. That needed to happen. All due respect to Eddie, it just should have happened before that, probably.
Yeah, had to move on. Eddie is just not a big league player at this point. It's funny, on that win on Thursday night, Eddie rounded third base, and he was running at the speed of like you and me, Brad. He was so slow. And I think you combine not being able to hit, not being very good defensively, and the fact that you can't even really count on Eddie as a pinch runner anymore. Not that Luke Williams, who they called up, is any – I mean, Luke Williams is a AAA player, if we're being honest. But he can probably do things a little bit better than Eddie Rosario can in the year 2025. And so long, Eddie. I think retirement is probably on the horizon. And hey, the memories will last forever. But he is just it was time, Brad. It was a short-lived time, and I think that's for the best.
It was time. I did not want to spend any of our time with Grant on that, so we knocked it out. It's out of the way now. Saturday was the only win. They win 3-2 in 11 innings. The Braves are now on the bright side 5-0 in extra innings this year. They've been an extra innings great team for the last couple of seasons, whatever that means to you. But even then, they didn't really do much on offense for the large portion of that game on Saturday. And kind of appropriately, the winning run in the 11th scored on a wild pitch. I will let you deliver the stat that Steven pulled for us about how just telling the offensive stuff was not very impressive in the 11th inning. They managed to score, by the way, the winning run in this inning, but they did it without really doing anything on offense. Go ahead. I'm teeing you up.
So 2 points on the Saturday win that I want to hit. The Braves did score 2 runs early, and then they sleptwalked the entire way. They had 1 hit, after the 3rd inning, which was an Eli White single that led to nothing in the 7th. You just said they scored in the 11th by way of a wild pitch. And Steven, our co-host, pulled this unbelievable stat. And I was like, there's no way. I have to go and fact check this for myself. And lo and behold, this was true. In the 11th inning, with a ghost runner on second base, the Pirates reliever threw 16 pitches. 1 of those pitches was in the strike zone. 16 pitches, 15 balls, 1 strike. And the Braves still somehow swung their way out of that inning. And the only way they scored was because the pitcher uncorked one that almost decapitated Eli White. That kind of says it all about this team right now. That against a bad reliever on a bad team, throw 16 pitches, 1 of them is a strike. And this team managed to swing its way out of the inning. There was a 2-0 slider off the plate that Sean Murphy chased and weakly tapped. I mean, it is bad baseball encapsulated. And when I saw that, I was like, what happened? Well, again, we'll ask Grant, what happened to this baseball team that we love? They can't hit. I could go out there and throw 15 pitches, and apparently I don't even have to throw strikes because they swing at everything. It's a new hitting coach. Prior to 12 months ago, you had a bunch of really great, battle-tested, proven hitters. Half of them suck now. I don't know what happened. I mean, I'm worked up, Brad, and we're 10 minutes into this podcast. I don't know, man. Hopefully Grant can be the voice of God and the voice of reason in this show. Because if it was you and me talking for an hour, I'd probably say some bad words, and we try to keep it family friendly on the show.
Yeah, I was already teasing you in public on Twitter about how I was going to have to be the positive one tonight, I guess, but I think we're going to have to be there at some point today. Shouts to Scott Blewett. Other than that, on Saturday, they won the game. Scott Blewett's been a hero since he joined the Braves out of nowhere. And the Braves, if you want to find some optimism, have really been able to find some of these like very, very abstract people cheaply, and they haven't all worked, but they've gotten a lot of value from these like fringy guys in the last couple of years. So there's something.
And AJ Smith-Shawver was good.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the next thing. That was definitely something to stand out. We'll ask Grant about that too. But AJ, that's 3 starts in a row now. He's been really good, and the upside is clear. I mean, the guy was a top prospect for a reason, but he is now pitching at that level, and you don't want to assume it's going to continue, but certainly you hope that it does because he looks great.
Yeah. Yeah. Handful of really good starts now for AJ Smith-Shawver, especially since going down to Gwinnett. If you look at his numbers on the whole, even if those first couple of starts of the year were shaky, his numbers are really good across the board. An ERA in the twos, his FIP and XFIP and expected ERA are in the mid threes, getting a lot of strikeouts with that awesome splitter that he throws. Big leaguers don't. I mean, there's legitimate tape on this splitter now, and big leaguers do not know what to do with it if it is anywhere near the zone. And I think most importantly, AJ has done a much better job of locating that fastball to give himself a chance, because when hitters are looking for a 96, 97, 98 fastball in the zone, and then they get that splitter that just kind of like flutters across the plate, it's clearly working for him. And if he can keep working and improving his slider and his curve, I think the Braves have found somebody who can really stabilize the back end of that rotation.
Yeah, let's hope so, for sure. And before we get to Grant, Sunday's game was frustrating. Now, they almost pulled out a impressive comeback, which would have been it would have improved the vibes, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Get down 3-0. Chris Sale gets BABIP'd again. A 500 BABIP allowed for Chris Sale in this game. I will say this, broadly speaking, about this entire game. I know, and I said this on Twitter, I know that no one wants to hear this, and I totally understand why, because I don't want to hear it either, to be 100% honest with you. The Braves were pretty unlucky today with batted ball data, like both with Sale and Iglesias in particular, like just some really, really bad luck. And the Statcast numbers tell that, like, they hit the ball better than the Pirates did, and they lost the game. That's going to happen, though, as many pointed out, and I wasn't saying otherwise. If you don't score runs, that's how you lose sometimes, is that you don't blow this team out that they should blow out. Anyway, I thought Sale looked pretty good to me. I know he allowed 3 runs. He had 18 swings and misses in this game. That's an elite number. He looked great to me. I'm not worried at all about Chris Sale. 0 after today.
Yeah, Chris Sale is back.
Yeah.
It's apparent now, 3 starts in a row. He has been excellent. And I think we knew deep down, even though those first couple of starts for Chris were frustrating, a lot of bad luck. And even if that bad luck reared its head again today, the stuff looks great. Chris looks great. He's getting so much swing and miss. That slider is probably a top 5 pitch in baseball, which is really impressive for a guy at 36, 37 years of age now. Fastball is good, keeps hitters off balance. And it's a theme, Brad. We could record ourselves saying, hey, the pitcher did his job today, but the offense cannot score to support him. Seems like that's the game story basically every night. And it was the story once again on Sunday.
It absolutely was. And, they come back in the 8th inning. We'll get into this later on, but the Braves somehow just come alive in the 8th inning or later for whatever reason this season. Frustratingly, they did come back and tie it on a Sean Murphy bases clearing double. The thing that made me probably the most tilted of anything that happened today, which is kind of telling about me, was when they had Nick Allen try to steal down 3 runs in the 8th inning. I don't know why that happened. I'll be the first to say you cannot assume that everything would have gone the same after that. I'll be the first to say that, but it is kind of maddening when they just lit it out on fire and a base runner on fire in a game where they lose by 1 after they came back and tied it. And I don't know why they did that. It was enraging. Shouts to Sean Murphy for coming through and having the one big swing of the day as a pinch hitter for Drake Baldwin. By the way, the fan base hated that pinch hitting. I saw that. Everybody's, why are they doing this to Drake Baldwin? Take him. Number 1, Sean Murphy's underrated. Number 2, it was a platoon thing. Was why that happened.
Yeah,
I didn't love it either. I was fine with Murphy hitting, but him coming through maybe just for a moment, people might maybe think Sean Murphy's good. I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah, nice job by Murph to put that ball in the gap, tie the game, give the Braves a chance. Yeah, man, I don't know. Is there a way we can get both Sean Murphy and Drake Baldwin into the lineup every night? Because this lineup, give Drake Baldwin a second baseman's glove. Give him a left fielder's mitt.
Everyone and their mother wants Drake to play left field, and I still don't think that's a viable idea. But at some point, you get desperate, and maybe you have to try it. So I don't blame. It's kind of the same thing as Eli White playing shortstop, which I've seen constantly, and I don't think it's really a viable idea. But maybe it is. I mean, maybe we'll see.
I am not nearly as much of a believer in Eli White continuing this. As I am Drake Baldwin. I mean, Drake Baldwin is ready. Drake Baldwin, if he got 145 starts this year, I think confidently Drake Baldwin would be a top 8 catcher in baseball. Maybe
he's
top 5. He's awesome.
I believe a Drake Ball would be really good, and I've seen this battle. We'll get to Grant, but people try to pit Murphy and Baldwin against it. Doesn't. Murphy's good and Baldwin's good. It's a good problem to have. It is a challenge when two of your best 6 hitters are both catchers. That is not a great spot, especially when you have a full-time DH, as we covered ad nauseum all winter long. It's a question, but in the meantime, it's good to have strong catching on both of those guys. So, okay, Scott, we've knocked out the nuts and bolts of the podcast. Are you ready to turn this over to Grant McAuley, our
the great
guest
Grant
on the
McAuley?
show?
Let's do it.
All right, after a quick break, here from our sponsors on today's show, we'll be back with Grant McAuley of 92.9.
FT fan by now, you know if you're buying, selling, trading, collecting cards, Arena Club is the spot. We've been talking about them all season long, but I do want to focus on the slab pack experience, Kratz, since you've been ripping some slab packs digitally. And what happens?
I mean, as a kid, you wanted to rip open the packs. How can they do this digitally? Oh, baby. This is exciting, how the graphics come out and everything. And, oh, yeah, the card that you pull, you can actually get that, John, physically. So it's perfect. It's all in one place, and it's a super exciting experience.
Yeah, they send that to you from the vault if you want it. But if you look at it and you're like, it's not the card for me, I want to sell it back, go for it. You can do any of that on Arena Club, and you can acquire the best value for your money with those slab packs, transparent checklists, and Arena Club's Slab Safe program. Right now, you can get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/FAL and use code FAL. arenaclub.com/FAL. Use code FAL.
All right, you've heard from me and Scott enough on this podcast. We're bringing in the heavy hitters. Braves insider Grant McAuley is here. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hello. How are you guys? I know we're having a conversation we were all so looking forward to.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. I think if I think if I had told Scott he didn't have to record tonight, he might have just willingly tapped out on this one. And that's not usually what Scott wants to do, but I had to twist his arm a little bit to get him to talk to you. Great. No, I'm kidding about that, but we're excited to talk to you. This was booked in advance. We were hoping to be talking about a productive series victory, and that's not what we're talking about today, but it's a good time anyway to get your insight. And great, this will not be a surprise to you. We have to start with the offense because that's the topic everyone's talking about and the topic that everyone has to talk about at this point. When you score 31 runs in 11 games and you're an offense first team in the way you're built in a lot of ways, that is going to create questions. So I guess we'll start here. Like, what's wrong with the offense, Grant? What are you seeing? What are you concerned with? What are you maybe encouraged by? If you have anything you're encouraged by, Grant McAuley's take on the offense as of May 11th.
Well, I'm here to tell you not good, and I could just throw it back to you. But it's so frustrating to watch because I feel like these guys are capable of so much more. They've shown us that. But you are who you are until you're not, was something I think Brian Snitker said like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and people probably looked at it and were like, well, what does that mean? But it's pretty straightforward. I mean, yes, there's potential, but there's results that have to happen in order for you to live up to that potential. And I feel like the Braves have been living in that space for 12 going on 13 months. And I crunched a ton of numbers for my show. You know, spoiler alert for everyone, they're not great, but also some inside baseball here. I just talked about this team in this particular series and some other things for about 2 hours before we get started. So it's discouraging, might be a good word for it. Frustrating is certainly the word. I looked at the 8 games coming into Sunday. The Braves were batting $149 with runners in scoring position. The only 2 teams in the National League who have scored fewer runs than the Braves, the Pirates, who have scored the fewest, surprisingly, and the Rockies right after that. So the offense has got to get it figured out because over that same stretch of games, about a week and a half, the pitching staff as a whole has floated out a 3.50 ERA, which is right in line with where this team was a year ago when it led Major League Baseball. So the pitching's working. The defense is certainly working. By most metrics, the Braves are a top 3 team defensively in baseball, which is kind of getting lost in everything else we're looking at. So 2 of the 3 things are working the way they need to. The third one, I know we can talk about Ronald. I know we can talk about batting orders and other things, but I don't really know what Brian Snitker can do because I don't think this is this guy needs to move from second to third, and this one from third to fourth, and this one from fifth to seventh, and this one from seventh to third. I just don't know that that's the answer. Some of these guys have just flat out got to perform because the only 2 Braves regulars for the month of May who are batting over 200 are Eli White, the Braves regular Eli White, and Austin Riley. So it has been a rough patch, and nonetheless, they've been able to stay competitive and win some games.
Yeah. It's funny. I think we can all tell ourselves a story where if we just blindly knew everything you knew about the season so far and had no idea what the record was, what are we saying? Like 15-25, maybe? I mean, everything set aside the injuries and the suspension of Profar and all that, but so many things have gone wrong from a performance standpoint on offense. And the pitching staff has given the team the chance to win basically every night, especially lately. It was a little shaky early on, but I don't know, Grant. I mean, people, I said this at the beginning of the show, and I'd love to get your take. People ask me daily, what is wrong with this offense? Like, we're 18 months removed from a historic, all-time, incredible offense. And even if you want to say that was 2 years ago and things have changed, sure. But I don't know. I mean, maybe you have an answer. Maybe you have an insight. You're around the team close as anybody. What is wrong with this baseball team on offense right now? Because they just can't score runs.
Well, I know the pressure is dialed up to about an 11, it feels like, from an at-bat to at-bat, opportunity to opportunity standpoint for this club, and that's not helping. I mean, it can't be the only thing, but it's not helping. Has there been some bad luck for them? Sure, there's been some of that, but I think all 30 teams probably go through some form of it, and maybe we can look at individual guys who've had it worse than others, but it's got to be more than just bad luck or bad timing and too much pressure on oneself. At some point, I don't know if it gets any easier to relax. I've never stood up at the plate with runners at second and third and 2 outs, looking at a guy that's about to throw 97, and then something else is going to break into the other batter's box that I have no chance whatsoever of putting the bat on. I mean, it's not an easy job, sure, but these are guys that, I mean, you talk about it being 2 years ago, most of them are still in the primes of their career, if not entering the primes of their career in most cases here. We're not talking about an old team that's somehow gotten older in the last 2 years. I mean, the aged hitter in the order is Marcell Ozuna, and he's arguably been their best hitter for well over a calendar year, if not pushing about a year and a half. I don't know that there is really an answer for it, but it involves Ozzie Albies, Michael Harris, Sean Murphy, Matt Olson. I mean, the usual suspects that are going to have to start hitting better and more. Yes, you can put Ronald Acuna Jr.'s return back in there as something that could energize them, but all of the problems I don't feel like are going to magically be solved just because you figured out your leadoff man. The Verdugo thing worked for a minute. Now it's kind of cooled off. So that's another question. You're given every day at bats to Eli White, which is a great story, but hardly what you were planning for. And then I think maybe the most impressive hitter this year, at least in small doses, has been Drake Baldwin. So it has been a truly weird year. And I don't really know, what's up and what's down some days, but this is a lineup that is better than its results. But, I feel like a broken record, and I know people are getting frustrated with it. Somehow, some way, they've got to figure it out.
Yeah, I find it interesting because there's so many different things we can talk about with the offense, like individually, collectively. For example, like you have your big boppers, right? Your Ozuna, Olsen, Riley, those three guys with Ronnie out. None of those guys have been bad this season. They all have totally respectable numbers. It's also fair to say that none of them are having like A+ seasons or even A seasons, maybe. Like they've all been fine, but not like tearing the cover off the ball. That's one thing. Your catcher situation's been great all season long. That's like maybe the one thing you can say with a capital check mark, with the way that Murphy's looked, the way Baldwin's looked, etc. And then you get to the rest of the order, and like it's like problem after problem. I mean, I wanted to ask you about Ozzie Albies. Let's just do that now. I love Ozzie, man, but even as people that on this podcast, we like to dig into the underlying data and try to find reasons why. It's all bad. Everything looks bad for Ozzie. The underlying numbers, the top line numbers. What's going on there? I mean, what do you think of that? Because is there a bounce back potential? Because he's not at the age where you'd be terribly worried on the surface, but also he's, last year was just okay. And this year, like there's not a lot to be encouraged by. That's one of the guys that they're obviously counting on to be good. He's not quite on the level of the other guys with the bat, but he's supposed to be better than your bottom 30 order guys.
Yeah, no, he certainly is. And I think that as you look at Ozzie, he's kind of he's a unique player, and not maybe necessarily in the ways that you want to be from a StatCast perspective. His results always seem to be better than if you were to go just look at the chart and say, okay, why is Ozzie successful? I mean, the launch angle this year has led to a lot of pop-ups. That's been one problem, but his hard hit rate, never been a big thing for him. His barrel rate, obviously there's room to improve there, I think, but somehow in 2023, even with, I would say, substandard rates in a lot of the places where if you look at, say, Matt Olson or Austin Riley or Ronald Acuna Jr. or Marcell Ozuna, it just jumps off the page. It's all red. He's been operating on the left side, the blue side of the spectrum, and making it work. But it hasn't been working this year. And obviously last year, I can look at a lot of it and say, The guy got hurt a couple of times, the second time of which wiped out the last 2 months. He came back because he cares enough to bat right-handed and try to give the club some kind of lift, for whatever they could do in the postseason, which admittedly was not much. But not too many guys are more committed or care or work harder than Ozzie Albies, but I don't really know what it is he needs to change. I mean, I get all kinds of crowdsourced ideas from folks about when he needs to swing a lighter bat, he needs to quit batting left-handed, he needs to, X, Y, Z on down the list. But I don't think those are really solutions. I mean, some adjustment somewhere, and maybe just a hot streak that he just happens into will make us all feel a lot better. But again, I talk about this club on a regular basis for hours every week, and I have absolutely no idea how it is they fix the things that are wrong with them, because I don't know, and you guys can feel free to chime in and share. It's your show. I don't know what exactly is wrong with them to begin with to tell you how to fix it.
Yeah. He is a bizarre player. I wish I knew, Grant. I wish we, I love Ozzie, as Brad said, such a likable guy. Seems like such a good dude, was just an awesome second baseman for years. And between the lack of walks and he has an infield pop fly problem right now, which is, of course, like a 99% likelihood of an out. It's basically a strikeout. The power isn't there. He did have a little bit of power that first week of the season, but the power has evaporated. I don't know, man. I really hope Ozzie is not going to play his way into a really unpleasant conversation this offseason, because, this team has enough issues going on. Another player I wanted to ask you about, who I think has shown some signs of life over the last couple of weeks, but is still not where he wants to be, is Michael Harris. I think we have documented on this show some of the flaws and traits that Michael has with his pitch selection and lack of walking, lack of on base. But it seems like he's been hitting the baseball well. And I think if you ask me just blindly, and I'll ask you, Michael Harris, Ozzie Albies, this time in 2 months, do you think one of them will have figured it out? Do you think both will have figured it out? Or do you think both are going to continue to struggle?
I don't think the struggles are going to last that long. But again, we are talking about a full calendar year worth of really lackluster results from a number of different Braves. And Harris has kind of been this tale of two seasons type player, or maybe it's just a slow start and then he just gets really hot for the final 3-4 months. Maybe the sample size is larger. I don't know. That certainly was the case in 23. He looked great down the stretch last year, to the point where getting into the offseason and thinking about, okay, well, if you don't have Ronald for a month or 6 weeks or whatever it's going to be, maybe give Harris some run at the top of the order. I know he's not a big on-base percentage guy with the walks, but the way he hits when he's hot, it certainly makes some sense there. That wasn't the case. We know that Profar was there. Now he's not. He'll be back later. They can figure that out at that point. We don't have to talk about it now. But there's been no clear answer at the leadoff spot when I thought maybe Harris would be that. And he's had some big hits this year and some big moments. But, Michael Harris, if I'm not mistaken, has not scored a run in 13 or 14 games. Is one of the stats that I pulled from my show. And I'd have to go back and look at all the box scores, but I'm pretty sure it's been going on 2 weeks since he scored a run, which is crazy, because you think, all right, he'll get on, he'll steal a base, he'll cause some havoc, he'll be in the middle of some of these rallies, but it hadn't been the case. And that's another just conundrum of it. But to answer your question about Ozzie or Michael, I feel like they could both figure it out. Ozzie's got a long track record of, being able to post numbers. Last year kind of being, I would say, an admitted outlier because of the injuries and the timing of those. But Harris is also, prone to having some pretty big hot streaks that go on for quite a while. So I think they will figure it out, but the sooner the better. And they're going to have multiple guys do that, because I went and looked at Ozuna the last 2 weeks for him. He's driven in 2 runs. Yeah. Folks may not have noticed that, despite the winning that's been going on. He's kind of been in absentia from that. He's drawn some walks and been in some rallies and whatnot, but he's not been the guy that we kind of expect him to be. So it started to get, go from, I don't know if bad to worse is it, because they are winning some games, but it's certainly alarming the way that different guys are struggling to the degree that they are, and the fact that I don't think any of us have been any closer to finding out exactly why it is, or they, more importantly, have figured out how to correct it.
Yeah, we asked about those guys for obvious reasons, but also because some of the other, Eli White's been great. I'm going to say that out loud. But the other guys, you mentioned Verdugo's in this. He started out hot. He's now been, I believe I pulled this in the last, basically in the month of May. Ozzie, as well as Nick Allen and Alex Verdugo, all have sub 500 OPSs for the month. That's tough to obviously deal with, but also you can't. I know Verdugo is better than that for sure. Nick Allen, I've enjoyed the Nick Allen renaissance quite a bit. The glove is masterful.
Yep.
There's not a lot that's there that could tell you that he's going to hit the ball at a high level, in his entire background, basically. So you kind of expect him to not do anything. And that kind of gets to where I wanted to go with this. With due respect to Eli White, who I think maybe is pretty good. I don't think he's this good. Maybe you disagree with me, Grant. But a lot of the issues with the lineup might be tied to like the realities of the talent level. Like a lot of the guys that are there, we've already talked about, are not playing. Maybe they're up to their level, but nobody's above it other than Eli White, basically, in the entire lineup. But they don't have the best talent in the world in a non-Ronnie, non-Profar universe. Is that fair? Like, how fair is that, Grant? As far as like what this lineup should be doing without Ronnie and without Profar, like how good should they be?
I mean, better than they are now, where we're talking about a middle of the pack offense in terms of power numbers, but in terms of runs scored, they got a negative run differential again after a disappointing weekend in Pittsburgh, where you thought, hey, maybe they'll go get fat and happy for a little bit and start to show some of those signs. I mean, they went to Coors Field and hit no homers in a 3-game series, and that's a weird place where stuff can certainly work in your favor offensively speaking. They lost a 2-1 game there. I guess it's better than being shut out 21-0, but it still felt like a pretty big gut punch for the momentum that the Braves were carrying up to that point. But kind of putting that aside, I mean, all of these guys, they're just having to make do with. I mean, Verdugo started out like a house of fire. First 14 games, he was hitting well over 300 on basing, about a 380 clip, and now he's won for his last 24. Is that who he is? I'm not sure I want to say that, but is he a guy that was about to hit 320 this year? Probably not. So the truth is somewhere in between for guys like that. For Eli White, it's a great story, and I think it will be until, for whatever reason, it may not be. He continues to do things with the bat. He's doing enough, I think, with the glove. He's a nice player. Can he be a complementary piece moving forward? Is there just a timeshare that you have to figure out in left field until you answer the Profar question, which there'll actually be quite a few for him to answer when he comes back. But Ronald Acuna Jr. is going to be one answer for this club, but it can't be the only one. And I know I've said that before, and it all seems to come back to that. I don't think that everybody's sitting around waiting to get serious until he does, but it does feel like this offense is just missing a level and unable to attain that level without him. And that is kind of a scary reality, but I think it's kind of where they're operating right now is, they may not be sitting around saying, okay, well, Ronald needs to come in and save the season. And I talked about this on Foul Territory this week. Maybe we all need to temper our expectations, but some of these other guys have to be the answer. And they're the ones that we're talking about right now that have got to start doing the everyday contributions that manufacture runs. Obviously, they can slug some, improved approach, some hits with runners in scoring position would make everybody feel better. How and when will it show up? I don't know.
Yeah, I do think it's that point that you made on Foul Territory, and I saw that that show about Ronnie. He's going to be good. I think we all probably understand that, but not expecting him to be 110% Ronnie immediately to save the day is probably safe for everybody. One more on the offense, and I actually find it interesting because of what you said before about the pressure aspects. They've actually been better under pressure than not under pressure. Like they seem to be in the 8th inning or whatever. They just decide to wake up and score runs. Is that just variance? Like, what do you actually? Is there anything to approach that might contribute to that, or is it just like because they seem to every night? It's like they're kind of dead, and then they come back from the dead, whether they win or not. They seem to come back from the dead every time they're in a close game, and then it's whether they could put it over the top or not.
No, it's weird. I mean, I wish they could bottle it, and I'm sure they do too. It feels a lot like the way it was in 23 when they'd score all those runs in the first inning, and if you weren't able to keep up, well, the Braves were just going to go on ahead and lap you by the time you got to the 5th or 6th. That's how good they were at that time. This is like the complete inverse of that, where, hey, I mean, you'll take those clutch hits, and I do think that, they matter, and you can look at high leverage, medium leverage, low leverage situations on some splits, the runners in scoring position for the old-fashioned folks that just like hits with runners on base. Can't argue with that. Those are nice. But I just it's a fascinatingly frustrating group of players that, for whatever reason, seem to be going through the same thing at the same time. And the pressure that I was talking about, this is from talking to different guys at different times over the last couple of years and hearing that, we want to come through in this spot. And I don't know how to use the movie, what was it, For Love of the Game, to clear the mechanism. I don't know if that's a real thing, but some of these guys probably need to figure out how to clear the mechanism at least a little bit. But this all comes back to, they care about the right things. The work is there. I show up at the ballpark 4.5 hours before the game, and these guys are on the field hitting early. They're doing the work. They're in the cages. They're on the field. It's not like guys are rolling in for, a 7:15 first pitch at 6:55 and just throwing their uniform on and going out there. But for whatever reason, the work, that process is not garnering the results. And I don't know if that's a Tim Hires thing or just an individual player thing. I would tend to say it's more on the individual players than anybody. to sort it all out, especially in today's age where everybody seems to have their own hitting system and their own place that they go and their own way of doing all of that. But I don't know. I feel like it's something we could talk about for the entirety of this show and every other show and still just not have the answers. So I don't know if that really helps out, but that's just kind of the way I've been seeing it here lately with this team. And by lately, I mean about the last 13 months.
All right, Grant, I want to switch gears with you just a little bit on, I mean, honestly, what's been probably the most positive topic of this team lately, and that is the starting rotation and the fact that it seems like Spencer Strider should be back within a week or maybe 10 days at the most. As of recording, we are waiting to hear if they're going to send Spencer out on a rehab assignment or if he will make a start this upcoming week. But the million-dollar question that everybody has right now is, what are the Braves going to do with the rotation? Are they going to go to a six-man? Are they going to bump Bryce Elder? Are they going to bump A.J. Smith-Shawver? Or are they going to send Grant Holmes to the bullpen? So, I mean, it's funny. There's probably pros and cons to all three of those at this point. What would you do, Grant, if I said, Grant, you are the manager of the Atlanta Braves, what do you think the team's going to do moving forward?
Well, it's almost, to me, as a general manager's type question, too, from a roster management standpoint, because they're going to make these decisions in conjunction with everybody's input on how the roster is going to be composed. And, yeah, if you're going to go, down in the bullpen by one arm, having somebody like Grant Holmes, who did play that swingman role very well last year. He spot started when he needed to. He's stretched out so he could give the club some length. Probably don't want him to go 3, 4, 5 weeks without getting a start and then say, okay, well, our expectation is 6 innings and 105 pitches or whatever. But you do have that, which is helpful. I would not think about relieving Bryce Elder or A.J. Smith-Shawver. I would leave them in the back end of that rotation. Can I say without a shadow of a doubt that either one of them or both of them are definitely better than Grant Holmes? Not necessarily. I feel like it's kind of a dead heat here early. The number one arm of that bunch in terms of potential is obviously Smith-Shawver. The guy with the most experience starting is Bryce Elder. And then you've got Grant Holmes, who's been a great story and a really useful arm. So I think there's a place for all three of those guys, even if you decide to rotate between a 6-man rotation and a 5-man rotation once you bring Spencer Strider back in. But the other part of the question that I asked Brian Snitker was, would you think about just sticking with this 6 as much as you can? Because it seemed to work out really well for Sale and Lopez a year ago, given them that extra day. And I think it made them sharper on the times that they had to start on regular rest. I mean, all of this may be anecdotal. I don't know. But it seemed like something the Braves have liked to do and could do with the right arms, but it's all going to depend on performance. So if I had to have 5 starters, maybe I push Grant Holmes into that swingman role because I believe he's capable of doing it. I wouldn't want to mess with the other 2. And obviously you've got Sale and Schwellenbach locked in. Bring Strider along, utilize those starts as you need to, and give guys a little bit of extra rest if they need it. And in this string of 17 games in 17 days, doesn't seem like the worst idea, at least for now, but it's going to depend on performance, honestly. This plan could change a week from now, 2 weeks from now, a month from now.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you didn't bring it up about this stretch of schedule has been particularly challenging with no days off for a while. Also, there's the what's the roster move going to be to bring Strider up, which is a lesser concern, but it is one with the pitching staff where the only guys with options are guys you don't want to send down because they're too valuable to you. There isn't this auto move. And then by the way, you have Craig Kimbrell looming out there, which everyone asks us about every single day. I'm not sure about you, Grant. We get a question about Kimbrell every single day of my life at this moment.
Yeah, I get a lot of questions about him, but as of right now, just kind of looking at where he is in AAA, I don't know if he appeared in Sunday's action or not, but at least heading into the weekend, it was like 7 1/3 innings at AAA, respectable ERA, but 5 walks, 5 strikeouts. So not big strikeouts, not encouraging walk numbers. I mean, Craig Kimbrell with the 7.5 strikeouts per 9, again, small sample, is surprising. Craig Kimbrell with the 7.5 walks per 9 is not a workable number. They've already got Rafael Montero, who's got a just scary walk rate going on. I get that they like the arm, but maybe that's the move. If we're looking at non-optionable pieces, the Astros are the ones that are paying him. But the Braves were trying to find some help where they could, and you don't want to lose options. That is the big thing. No pun intended. You like the guys that have options because you can bring them up and down. The Braves don't have as many of those that they can with Dylan Lee and Daysbel Hernandez and A.J. Smith-Shawver, and I guess Bryce Elder. Technically, you could option him out. but what does it do to your rotational plan? And, they got to stay down for 15 days. So are you comfortable with that unless somebody goes on the IL? The whole thing is a lot more complicated than it feels like, A, before they changed the option rules, and B, the way it was a couple of years ago when there just seemed to be more guys with options on the staff.
And hey, shouts to Bryce Elder. Like 2 weeks ago, if you told me this was going to be a decision of some kind, I would have probably laughed at you because I'm been low on Bryce Elder for a long time. He's pitched well enough to where you have to think about it now, which is a credit to Bryce Elder. He's pitched very well when we shot that out because I would still probably, in a vacuum, trust Grant Holmes more. But Grant Holmes has an arm that works in the bullpen, as we've seen, in the way that Bryce may not work in the bullpen. And Smith-Shawver is just going to be in pen, I think, the way he's looked recently. I can't imagine them taking him out of the rotation anytime soon. Does that make sense to you, Grant? Would that shock you like it would shock me?
It would surprise me if they were to option Smith-Shawver again. Well, shock may be a big word. It would be surprising. I don't know if I said which one I said, but I just want to say, I don't know if anything shocks me anymore, but it would be surprising if they decided to send A.J. Smith-Shawver back down to the minor leagues. But I talked to Bryce Elder this past week and A.J. Smith-Shawver and just to kind of get an insight on what has made them more successful. And for Bryce Elder, he said he spent last year kind of chasing the wrong things because he was trying to recapture a way that he was in the past and not really being able to make the everyday adjustments he needed to right now. Also going 8-9 days between a start probably doesn't help. Being yo-yoed back and forth between AAA and the majors doesn't help. But knowing where you are every fifth day, getting on that routine, I think has helped him. For Smith-Shawver, it was more of I used to feel like, and keep in mind how young he is, so this quote will make a lot more sense, I just needed to throw my best stuff and put it in the zone. I'm learning I don't always have to do that. There are a lot of other aspects of pitching I think he's really coming along with, and that gets me more excited about what is ahead for him than obviously even the few that we've seen recently that indicate that it's in there. I think this is a guy that they feel strongly about. So to see him get sent out again would be kind of surprising for me.
Yeah, I would agree. And you said it perfectly, Grant. We've learned that no roster move is off the table when it comes to preserving depth and flexibility. But yeah, I really hope. I think this weekend, one of the few real bright spots was just how good A.J. Smith-Shawver has looked. He's grown. You put up tape of him a month ago versus today. Mm-hmm. You can just see the way he's attacking, the way he is prioritizing getting ahead of hitters. And that splitter is so much fun. I just kind of wanted to get your take. You said you talked to him this past week, but to me, I don't want to put too high of expectations on the kid. He's all of 22 years old, but it feels like the Braves have maybe found another young arm to be a real piece of this team long-term, as long-term as starting pitching can be in the year 2025.
Yeah, it definitely does. There's a reason why he was on those postseason rosters the last 2 years. Now, the big reason why he got a start last year was because Chris Sale went down and it sent the Braves into an absolute panic mode. But there is a reason that they chose him, I guess, is more to my point. And a reason that he was around in 2023 as well. And the fact that he came up basically 2.5 years ahead of schedule, essentially as a very novice pitcher who didn't even do much of it in high school, had very limited innings in the minor leagues, and they felt like had the arsenal to compete at the big league level. It's a big compliment in my book. And was it an overreach at that time? Maybe, but they needed it and it worked in spurts. But I think there's so much more there under the hood. And that's really what they're looking to put together is a rotation that has both the results right now and obviously the sustainability to expect the consistency. And the rotation has been showing that even with the moving pieces this year, even without Spencer Strider for all but 5 innings thus far, they've found a way to make this thing work. And I think going forward, if it's going to continue to work, A.J. Smith-Shawver's got to be a big part of it.
Okay, Grant, I have to ask you the big picture question that everyone's been asking us.
Now, when will Jesse Chavez be back?
That's one that any day now, I'm sure we'll see Jesse come through the club. You'll probably see him before we do. He'll be just up in the clubhouse one day. He'll just be there. Beyond Jesse, and I'll ask it in a more sanitized way than social media would ask it, which it's mostly people yelling at us about how the Braves aren't good and all these things, right? But they're 19-21 right now. This is the big round number of 40 games in. We're a quarter of the season in. If you go back 12 and a half months, they're a 500 team now for about a full season. And I guess the question is, how good are the Braves really? Like, if you're looking forward, you're baking in a lot of things. We already talked about it. Acuna will be back at some point in time. Mm-hmm. Profar will be back midseason. Strider will come back soon. All those things. But if you're forecasting, obviously a lot has changed because you've banked 21 losses. That's the reality of the situation. But what would you say to people that are asking that question of like how good the Braves are, or maybe how bad the Braves are, if you want to be pessimistic, like many have been right now? And I totally get that. What are you forecasting for the rest of the season, knowing what we know now?
Well, if I were to describe how are the Braves or who are the Braves or, what exactly do I see in the Braves, they're a team that is better than they have played. But your record indicates who you are, at least for right now. And they've got to get about the business of sorting things out offensively. The Acuna thing is going to help. Getting him back in whatever level he is at on his spectrum of being a useful player, which could be anywhere from the low, or what would we call it, the high floor of what he was in 22. That'd be a pretty good year for a lot of big leaguers, or the absolute monster superstar that he was in 23. I personally think he'll probably fall somewhere in between those standards, but he will make this club better as a result of that. But unless or until they figure out the offense, we're going to continue to think that there's more there. And I believe that there is more there, but when is just that fascinatingly, insanely frustrating question, to use that phrase again, because they have been, over the course of a year now, as you pointed out, a club that's at about a 500 level. They pitched way better than that. They deserve to have won more games, but they aren't able to score runs the way they were in 23. And that is a huge, huge detriment for them. I mean, splitting the difference between last year, which is a low bar, and 2023, which is an incredibly high bar, I just thought the Braves could get back to being a top 10 offense in the league. And I don't think that that's too much to ask when you consider who we're talking about, but they've got to go out there and do it to make people believe that it's possible again. And they've got to do it on a sustained run for a while to help kind of cancel out all of the questions that came with that first 7 games of the season, and really has rained down, or at least followed them around, since last year when they fell off. And we're basically a 500 club for the remainder of that year after a hot start in April, pushing into May. There's just more questions than answers for this club. And I wish I had a few of the answers. I'd like to go down and share them with them, but I don't think they're crowdsourcing those answers the way we do on social media.
Yeah. And it has been a weird first month and a half. We could sit here and talk for 4 hours about this team, but it has just been a weird baseball season so far for the Atlanta Braves. And hopefully they have 4 games back at home where the Braves have been very, very good. They have been awesome at Truist Park. Summer is approaching, should have a full park the next 4 nights, but an opportunity now, 4 games at home against the Nationals. They're not going to see Mackenzie Gore, who's been good. He pitched Sunday, so that's a nice little bit of scheduling break. And while it's funny to say a team that is 19-21 should be able to take advantage of a team, it's not like the Nationals are so far down the standings behind the Braves. But it feels like at home, this is a winnable series for the Braves, and hopefully they can finally hit that 500 mark. That's almost becoming like taboo at this point, because I think now they're 0-3. 2 of those were against the Rockies and the Pirates, and they just have not been able to get to that 500 mark against some pretty bad teams.
Yeah, and that's been, again, just part of the thing that just makes you shake your head or scratch your head or scratch your head while you're shaking your head. I don't know. But, this is a club that has 7 of the next 10 games against the Washington Nationals, a team that is, I think, on the rise, but certainly has some questions about it the same way that the Braves do. They're not a finished product in terms of their rebuild, but in the middle of that, you got 3 games against the Boston Red Sox. So it could be a challenging week in terms of the Braves have not really played above their competition, and a lot of people have looked at them as kind of playing down to it, and Pittsburgh is another example of that. So can they go out there and win another series 3 out of 4 at home the way they did against the Reds? That would go a long way towards making you feel that momentum swing maybe back the other way. And then you got to go to Boston and account well of yourself against a very tough team in that division before you stay out on the road for the back half of that trip and see the Nationals again in their place. So, it's all about finding some consistency for this club and maintaining some momentum. And while the old saying, maybe momentum is as good as the next day's starting pitcher, I think the answer is different for the Braves. Momentum might be as good as whatever their offense can give them on a day-to-day basis. And they need a few guys to step up and play the way they're capable of and the way that they have in the past in order to get this thing turned around and moving in the right direction to stay.
If they win on Monday and they go into Tuesday with Schwellenbach against old pal Michael Soroka with a chance to get to 500, we're all going to have the surrender cobra, I think, going into Tuesday's game. preparing for the absolute worst. But
yeah,
it's an opportunity to be optimistic at the end of the podcast. That has a lot of pessimism to it to some degree. Playing the Nationals in 2 out of the next 3 series, they're not particularly awesome. And again, missing Mackenzie Gore, all those things. They have a chance here to make a little run, and they've had some chances that they've already missed, but they have more chances to come. I think I don't want to speak for anybody, but I think between the 3 of us, we probably think the Braves are better than this. Mm-hmm. Probably.
Yeah.
So we'll hope that's true. We'll hope that we're right in that example. Grant, before we let you get out of here, first of all, thank you for doing this with us. I'm sorry that it came on this date. If I could have planned around some more success for the Braves to ask you to come on the podcast, we would have done that for you. But we do appreciate you being here. I know you work like 10 different places, but anything you'd like to share with our audience of ways to follow you and all of your musings, whether it be audio or written work, where can they find all of Grant McAuley's fantastic work?
Yeah, the number one place is wherever you get your podcast. You can subscribe to From the Diamond. You can also find it on the Odyssey app if you have that. I'm on 92.9 The Game on Sundays from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. throughout baseball season for 2 great hours of Braves and baseball talk. I use great as a relative term because it all depends on the results that are out of my control, but we have as much fun as we can 5 to 7 on Sundays on 92.9 The Game in Atlanta. Again, wherever you get your podcast, From the Diamond, and on the Odyssey app. And you can find me on socials at Grant McAuley. That's a pretty safe and direct route to find out whatever I'm talking about or not talking about, as the case may be, on a daily or up to the minute basis.
Well, Grant, we appreciate it. I will speak for Scott on that one. I think we're probably safe to say that. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us on a Sunday evening. Hopefully we can talk you into coming back later in the season to hopefully talk about some more winning baseball in the meantime. But check out all of Grant's stuff. If you're a subscriber to our podcast, thank you. And if you're not, for joining us because Grant's here, number one, welcome aboard. But please also subscribe to this podcast. Check out all of Grant's work. And we'll see everybody next time.